Thank you, my friend and moderator for today, Karan, distinct dignitaries on the dais, members of the audience. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today here, and it's wonderful because I went through the long days program, and you had excellent sessions curated throughout the day, and it's probably covered all aspects of the industry, and I think that's the good thing. I had my own colleagues speaking to you early morning, Dr. Vinod Paul, and a lot of secretaries of Government of India. Secretary Pharma was here, Secretary Health Research was also here. So, so I was wondering what should I be speaking about? Having come when most topics would have been covered, most themes would have been covered. So let me keep out of healthcare per se, because it's a vast subject and there's no end to discussion on healthcare as a subject, right? I mean, we can spend the next 50 years discussing about healthcare and approaches to healthcare. 100 people will have 100 views. I'll focus only on MedTech. And this is an area of interest to me personally, because I think when I was Commerce Secretary, we actually hived off medical devices from the Engineering Export Promotion Council and created a separate Export Promotion Council for medical devices. This was in the year 22, and there was a constant request coming from industry that this sector has to be handled differently. It's not pharma, it's not engineering, it's very, very unique. And I think that suddenly brought a lot of limelight and recognition to the entire sector. And the second thing was, it was around that time when the AMTZ in Vizag in Andhra Pradesh actually started taking off. And actually there was a bit of a tussle, where do you keep the headquarters of the MedTech, the Medical Device Export Promotion Council? Should it be in Vizag or should it be in Gujarat? So the tussle resulted in some kind of a neutral decision, headquarters in Gujarat with a branch in Hyderabad. I guess that's it. So anyway, that's how real life is. But coming back, I think, what is India? I mean, it's a country of 140 crore people. I think there's 1.4 billion people. We are, I think, peaking fast, which is good, but we'll peak and probably hit about 1.6 billion. That will be the size of India. And by far we are the largest nation by population, and we will be the largest nation for the foreseeable future till the turn of this century. So till 2100 for sure, India will be the largest. So what does it also mean? We are a young nation. We have an average or a median age of 29. And even 25 years from now, our median age would still be 38, 39. So it's a huge growing population. At the same time, see India rapidly now going up the income ladder. We were not a very wealthy country. We have crossed the problems of poverty, ignorance, disease. We are growing rapidly, and most countries which are at this stage in their economic life grow very rapidly after that. So India is going to be actually that's what we are targeting from NITI. That's what the Prime Minister and the government is targeting, to make India a developed country in 25 years. So this is a country which is going to have immense purchasing power as you go along. So you have a country where lifespans are increasing, the population base is going to be large, and people want to be living healthier lives for a longer duration. I mean, there's going to be a huge healthcare market in India, and there's going to be a huge medical devices market in India. So I am actually showing you the size of the potential that is there. So if India's medtech market, and I don't want to put a number there are some numbers in front of me, but if it's some number today, even in as short as about 5-7 years, it will be 3 to 4 times that. And if you look at the longer 25-year time span, it would certainly be 10 to 12 times. I mean, if you just look at senior citizens in India, people above 60, India has 14 crore senior citizens. By 2047, it's actually going to be 35 crores, 350 million senior citizens. I mean, that would be the third largest country in the world by today's estimate. So that would be just the population of senior citizens. So I think healthcare, medical care, and to go with that, medical devices will play a very large role in keeping this population healthy, leading active lives. It also would mean India is going to be a very large market. We are probably the 4th or 5th largest market already for medical devices. Soon, I'm guessing in a couple of years, it will be a 2nd or 3rd largest. I still remember 20 years ago, India was a tiny automobile market in the world. I mean, today we are up there among the top 5 in terms of, volumes. Sure, we're catching up in value also, and it's visible. What would it mean in the long run? It would also mean that domestic manufacturing capabilities are also bound to rise. And I think that's very, very important. India is not only going to be a consumer of MedTech, but it's also going to be a manufacturer of MedTech. And it's inevitable. Policy will have to be adjusted to suit that, and companies will have to adjust their activities to suit that. I mean, it's in the interest of all firms to be as close to the consumers as possible. I mean, that makes for flexibility. I know the human body is the same. I mean, we are, end of the day, all Homo sapiens. So the same device should work everywhere. But all the same, it's important that this point also is kept in mind. The other thing is, MedTech is not just an industry. It's a part of the entire healthcare ecosystem. So I think that's the lens through which we should see MedTech. MedTech's goal is to improve quality of life and improve healthcare. And as long as that lens is maintained, as far as a policy is concerned, I think we'll not lose balance of the larger thing. What do I see India growing in MedTech in the next 5 years or next 20 years? I see India actually growing in 2 areas broadly. One is as a center for innovation, and the other is a center for manufacture, both for different reasons. I mean, given our scientific talent, our R&D talent, and a huge base of people on which to try out new things, India can actually become a global hub for innovation. It's already visible. We have a huge number of startups in India. There are over 1,000 MedTech companies which are there. And MedTech is not just an IT platform alone. We are also talking about pushing that into devices getting integrated into platforms, into human bodies, a whole set of stuff. I mean, some of the stuff I'm hearing, I actually ran into a junior IAS officer of mine, who was a doctor, but who's quit the service as an entrepreneur himself, based out of Dubai, of course. He actually said that we have reached a point where I can, automate a doctor out of the medical system. Now, doctors would be horrified, hospital systems would be, and I've actually seen a demonstration of that. So unless you're into tertiary medical care or you need a surgical operation, 90% of primary healthcare doesn't need a doctor. And today AI can do it. The only thing that prevents it is regulation, because you need a prescription written by a doctor. You can see how technology coupled with devices is going to actually change the way healthcare is going to be delivered. And I think that is something where I am just waiting for the first country where the medical system or the doctor, quote unquote, is going to be dropped out of the system, at least at the primary level. And it's actually doable, and it's just a matter of time. And we are living in the world of AI, and this is going to affect us a lot. What are the things which are going to drive whatever is happening in demand? One is on the demand side. And on the demand side, there are 2 big things. One is, the increasing coverage both by the government and by the private sector on healthcare through insurance and government programs. You got the Ayushman Bharat mission, you got the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, and the Ayushman Bharat, the digital health mission. The volume of digital data that is being generated in India in healthcare is probably unprecedented. Where rest of the world is actually trying to integrate physical data onto digital platform, India is actually beginning the digital way. I think that gives us a head start. People are missing out the potential of this. They're not seeing it. It's just like people were missing out the big picture when we were doing Aadhaar, when we were doing bank account. The moment you linked all of that, what emerged out of it? UPI emerged out of it. Similarly, the range of digital data that is coming out and the amount of mass of data that is there, it's just a matter of time when somebody is going to tap into it. And so I think that's going to be a major turning point. The other thing which is going to drive demand in India, and it's going to drive innovation, is price sensitivity. It is a price sensitive market, let's be very clear. So, and it is going to continue to be a price sensitive thing, not because of incomes, it's also probably human psyche. All individuals, all societies are not identical. Price sensitivity in India will lead to low cost innovation. And I think that's going to be a major driver of making India a global hub in this. So on the demand side, the entire digitalization process on our large population base is going to be a major thing. The second side of the demand equation that is going to be there is the gradual integration of India on the medical side with the rest of the world. I mean, we have had free trade agreements. We have one with Australia. We have one with UK. One with EU is in the last stages. Hopefully, there'll be something with Canada. We have one with UAE. There's other stuff going on with the Middle East. In this free trade environment, India as a manufacturing base for a large number of medical technologies is going to be very, very attractive. And I'm not looking at medical devices as a vertical. I'm also looking at it horizontally. There are developments happening in other spaces, in the semiconductor space, in the manufacturing space. All of that put together creates an ecosystem in India to become actually a leader in medical device manufacturing. So I think the demand side is going to be huge. On the supply side, you've got the government which is actually helping a lot. A lot of these government schemes and programs are there. In addition to that, the government, I think the Secretary Pharma must be there in the morning. I chair the Empowered Committee on PLIs for medical devices. I mean, almost $500 million has been invested as incentives for local device manufacturing. It's one of the more successful PLIs of the government. And I think it's had an impact. It has crowded in a lot of investment. But more interestingly, there's another scheme which is there with the department, the Secretary may have spoken, which is, the pharma department has a research-linked incentive program. They call it PRIP. Actually, you can do research, not just in new drugs, but new medical devices. And the government underwrites the research, which takes you from TRL 1 to 5 or 5 to 10, and you actually come out with a product. That is actually an earth-changing, is one of the largest programs where research and output product are actually getting linked. There are many such schemes that are happening across the country. So as I see, the penetration is going to be large on the manufacturing side. So the supply side is going to give a lot of push. Simultaneously, I think the government is also investing in a lot of pharma parks. You've got AMTSZ in Vizag, many pharma parks. One is coming somewhere near Hyderabad. You can see there are about half a dozen states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, which will all be coming with pharma parks with MedTech zones. So I think this is being seen as a growth area, not just domestically, but internationally, given those international linkages which I mentioned. So I see a potential boom coming up in the next couple of years. I think the 25 to 30 is going to be a very, very transformative year. I think when we grew up, when we talked of MedTech, we always thought of foreign brands. As we go forward, I see more and more Indian brands coming up, or foreign companies with Indian sub-brands or whatever coming up. So I don't see it an exclusive Indian foreign kind of a thing. I think Made in India is as Atmanirbhar. It doesn't matter who owns the company. I think that's going to be there. So what are the takeaways? And I'd like to conclude here. This is going to be a big market, a growing market, and a growing base for manufacturing. It's undeniable. And I think it's time to capitalize on that and start paying attention to that. The second is, India is not creating any narrow vertical. We are actually tackling the entire ecosystem. The entire healthcare ecosystem, of which MedTech is a part, and the entire manufacturing ecosystem on electronics, of which again MedTech is a part. So I think that's going to be a benefit. The third is, the entire government approach is moving from Make in India to innovate, design, and Make in India. So I think the promotion for innovation and design, it's huge. And given the vibrant innovation ecosystem that exists in many parts of India, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad, I think this is a very live wire place where you will find, it's sometimes so, inspiring when you meet some of these companies which are raring to go, which want to break down past barriers. As I said, if people are thinking of actually eliminating doctors from a hospital, that is revolutionary thinking. Okay, so that's the direction in which world is, and I think the MedTech ecosystem in India will be driving growth in areas which are unthinkable, and therefore India is not only going to be seen as a market, but it's also going to be seen as a leader in innovation and manufacturing as far as medical devices are concerned. And India is open for business. I mean, and the government is on a rapid drive for reform. And the government is also focused a lot on futuristic technologies. I was in NITI released a report yesterday. It was on AI for accelerated economic growth. The finance minister and the IT minister released those reports yesterday. And we are looking, while the world is worried about AI, India is looking at AI as an opportunity. India is looking at AI as a job creator and a GDP creator in India. Our own estimates say that by 2035, if you use AI correctly, India can add about $1.5 billion to our GDP. Under the entire Frontier Tech Hub initiative in NITI, I have about 20 work streams which are happening. And one of them is AI for healthcare. And when I look at that, we'll talk about it later, maybe with some of you separately. We have actually created a template. We are not tackling healthcare as disease. That's the way normally we approach healthcare. That's how most pharma companies have their vertical. We are looking at healthcare as a life cycle thing, from birth till we leave the world. And at each stage, there are going to be pharma requirements and there are going to be technological requirements. And where will technology affect both pharma and medicine? And I have this huge chart which is there, and you can suddenly see there is no aspect in the entire life cycle which is not going to be affected by technology and medical devices. It's huge. And when we think of medical devices, we think of something that happens on the operation table in a theater. Not necessarily. People going around with those gadgets on your wrists and around your shoulders, they're also MedTech devices. And kind of, they're becoming smarter and smarter and smarter. So I think this is the future that is there. And the way we are working, the way we are thinking, India is going to be a fantastic place as a location for one of the most dynamic, vibrant MedTech ecosystems in the world. Thank you very much.
Mr. Subramaniam, thank you very much. That was terrific to hear the much broader perspective. We'll give you the last word as well, so we'll come back to you. We have a wonderful panel. Thank you very much for joining. They will try and be quite ambitious and talk about the future landscape, talk about the MedTech hub, and then priorities. So without much ado, I'm going to jump in. And as Varun, I think Varun may have left, as Varun mentioned, we're going to start with the customer and start with the market. So Upasna, if I can start with you. A lot of excitement about what has happened in the delivery space. So project out the next 10 years. What is going to be different this time around?
Thank you so much for inviting me here. And actually, I'm a customer. So all those who are sitting here, they are selling to me. So I can give the right feedback to all of you. Actually, the way healthcare industry is changing, that is actually an example for the world. We are going very fast. And definitely this is Atmanirbhar Bharat is also very good. Lots of companies started doing, all those companies who are based in some other country, they also started doing something in India. And hopefully the kind of atmosphere, the kind of hand holding by the government is happening. Because, my hospital is in Uttar Pradesh. And there is again a MedTech park is there. And I was part of that MedTech event also. I don't know why I am going to MedTech. I think half of the faces I recognize because they are coming to me and I recognize everybody. But the kind of changes this industry is doing, lots of AI now involved with the equipments. Same time, the kind of Indian equipments are also very high tech now. You can't say that Swadeshi is not good, only Videshi is good. Reason behind this, all those people who are dealing in medical devices, now they are also doing research. It's not like that they are just copying, they are doing some research also. And if I talk about whole healthcare, then I am telling you, yesterday, there was a meeting held in Quality Council of India for MVT because our Prime Minister is very keen to make India the best destination for medical value travel. So I think if we keep this thing in mind that this is the place, India is the place where from all part of the world will come for medical care. So you can understand that future is very bright for everyone, for healthcare provider, as well as you people who are providing all these things. So after 10 years, you will find that India is Vishwa Guru in everything and especially in health. So everybody will look at us for innovation, for AI, for best doctor and for best equipment.
Thank you, Upasna. That's extremely positive. Shravan, give us your perspectives. We heard Varun talk about 1 million beds being added, but the big question mark is always tier 2, tier 3. Is the time now? Are you seeing the investments from a BPL perspective?
Absolutely, Karan. And just to pick up from where Dr. Upasna left off, every segment of hospitals looking for changes, looking for advancements. But for the benefit of the audience, broadly, we look at India and Bharat. And for the people visiting from overseas, the hospitals to which your India team has taken you to visit, they are India. The posh hospitals with a very sophisticated setup. But real healthcare is taking place in Bharat, which is the vast majority of locations across India. We have about a dozen metro cities, but we have about 600 cities that qualify in tier two, which are probably a million and above in population, very aspirational. And anecdotally, I'm saying your median hospital is typically family owned. Uncle is a radiologist, auntie is a gynecologist, and they set up a multi-specialty hospital. And inevitably, the daughter is a fertility specialist because, population. And the son-in-law is a spine surgeon who's aspiring for a robotic surgery center. But what we're also noticing is that these folks, these hospitals are extremely aspirational. Most of the folks that run the hospitals have either trained overseas or have exposure to products from overseas that they have seen. And their expectations are quite high, while their ability to afford them is still just increasing, right? But if I were to look at the rate limiting steps, probably in order, they would be skill. And I think that's where the people in this room have a significant role to play in skill building, in training, and equipping not just the surgeons and the specialists, but the entire ecosystem to be able to accommodate some of the fancy equipment that we see advertised all over here. And, Sir spoke about, India being a price-sensitive market. Now, that can be solved in a few different ways, and I think that's also happening. We're seeing that if you're able to scale uptake, capacity utilization is one way to solve pricing. And then we heard in the previous panel, Viren Shetty was talking about value-based care and insurance. That can also solve it. But there's also a significant role for financing to play a role here in expanding the reach of medical equipment and sophisticated technology. I hope private equity is listening to this. And finally, again, the role that we have for people in this room is made-for-purpose products. I think it's going to be very challenging to have a high-end, 3 Tesla MRI operating in say, Namakkal, when they just don't have the capacity to utilize that. But if you can adapt a product that is fit for purpose for the market, for the requirements of your 75 to 100-bedded hospital that is family-run, I think you're on the money there.
So we still have work to be done to get the right value proposition products to make it very feasible.
Absolutely.
Himanshu, if I can just turn to you, there's been so much of excitement in your PE community of investing. There's 15 billion in the last 3 years, and lots of exits. Lots of people have made a lot of cash. Help us understand what is the investment thesis you're underwriting, with Appaswamy, with Merrill, and these unconfirmed reports of another acquisition or another deal you're about to announce. But what's the investment thesis? And compare that, if you don't mind, to the other segments like delivery and pharma for us, please.
Very happy. And first of all, thank you for having me on this panel. I'd say our thesis is very simple. We back domestic leaders who combine deep clinical expertise with vertical integration. A couple of examples you mentioned, our portfolio companies, Appasamy, Merrill, are classic examples. Both market leaders in their categories have strong R&D engines, which is in-house, have manufacturing capabilities here, and both have strong aspirations. To your point, Karan, so that's our thesis. Why we like MedTech and how does it compare with some of the other healthcare segments? I think by any measure of quality or quantity, MedTech is underpenetrated in India compared to any other global market. But more interestingly, MedTech is also underpenetrated compared to other healthcare subsegments. So an interesting stat is per capita in India, the number of surgical procedures are 1/10 on volume compared to the US. So still a long way to go. If you compare pharma, 20 years back, world was looking at Indian pharma, and look what's happened, right? A number of pharma companies outsourced. India now is the global hub of generic pharmacy. So I'd say that market compared to pharma, MedTech is still very nascent. The runway for growth is significantly high. We like that. And it's a products business. Compared to hospitals, which again is a fascinating segment and a lot of money has gone in, I'd say, Karan, hospitals take time to build. They are regulated. Payback periods are tough. And Upasna, you'd know this better. MedTech is a same way of playing the same underlying theme, but in a slightly more asset-light manner, a slightly more broad-based and a little more diversified. So I'd say if you compare to pharma, compared to hospital, MedTech offers this asset-light, scalable, more diversified platform. More importantly, there are a couple of other tailwinds that benefit MedTech. First is this whole domestic players versus the MNC, right? Still, 70% of the products in India are MNC imported products, 30% are domestic. So there's still a long way where domestic champions can continue to win share. The second is it's a products business. You can actually explore international markets. And I go back to what Mr. Subramaniam said, right? Our aspiration should be to be a center of innovation and center of manufacturing. So there's a possibility for some of these domestic champions to be global champions, which is hopefully where we play a role as private equity instead of fostering some of that.
So under penetration, lots of tailwinds, asset light, import substitution, so massive. Do we expect? Will this be the biggest segment within healthcare of attracting capital, Himanshu?
Yeah, look, I think hospital will continue to attract from a scale perspective a lot of capital because it takes capex to build hospitals. I do think the interest in medtech would continue to be very high. I think the problem today is of scale. I think few medtech players have broken out and can absorb that type of capital. We are seeing a thriving ecosystem both in private and public markets for hospitals. We have more than a dozen hospitals publicly listed. I think 10 years later, I'd expect 10 medtech listings.
Got it. Excellent. Sandeep, just to pick up on what Himanshu is saying, it's fascinating to see family offices make a mad dash into MedTech. You know, whether it's Pankaj Patel, whether it's Ranjan Pai, whether it's the Alchem family, etc. Why is that the case? And then second, related to that is with all the what's changing on the capital markets. You've got Prabir here with looking at an IPO. We've got Merrill. We've got a whole host of players looking at tapping the public markets. With so much capital in what Himanshu is saying, what is going to be the deployment that you foresee in this sector?
Thanks, Karan. I think the theme of today has been that MedTech is at an inflection point, right? It's a call of action. Now is the time for India to really take this market opportunity. And the opportunity is large, right? You look at India today, there's only one publicly listed medtech company. You juxtapose that with China, where there are 70 public medical device companies. You look at Australia, there are 35. You look at Japan and Korea, there are 20 medtech companies. There's no reason that India should only have one public medical company, given the population, all of the tailwinds we talk about, the engineers that we have. So I think you're seeing a lot of the family offices, a lot of these public companies, people like Himanshu and others realize the opportunity. They have maybe targeted pharma and hospitals historically, and now are looking for other avenues for growth. So we're quite excited about the pipeline of companies in India that will list. And we think the opportunity is large, and there will be global recognition.
And the family offices, your comment there?
Yeah, look, I think they are looking for opportunities to invest in, and that's part of our role as bankers to help build that ecosystem, help early stage companies find the capital to grow, help mid-stage companies IPO, do their M&As, look abroad for acquisitions. So it's all about the potential opportunity and people sort of looking beyond their core markets into medtech and how they can deploy there.
So is it fair to expect a lot more M&A that we will anticipate in this sector, Sandeep?
I hope so, as a banker, but I think we'll see a lot, right? And you look at the pipeline of IPOs coming in India, I think we'll have 3 to 5 medtech diagnostics companies listed within the next 12 months, right? And on the back of that, we need M&A. We need people like Himanshu to, buy companies. We need exits like Anish has had with KKR. That's how you build this ecosystem. That's how you get the excitement. You get the dollars in. And that's how we can build upon and really reach the goals that, the government and others are sort of setting for us.
Karan, if I could just add to that, since you asked about family offices, and I've represented, currently working on behalf of one. And what I love about them is they're very passionate, very driven from the promoter's point of view. And they're also okay with a bit of a long-term approach. But I think at some point we'll see some convergence because once you reach, and also, the medtech market is still not large enough. It's still very fragmented. But at some point, as we'll assimilate these, we'll see a bit of convergence between the family offices and the larger professional ones.
And I'll just add, there's a massive boldness of the family office also in also committing significant capital. So they will be big players going forward, absolutely new players. Anish, if I can come to you, you've heard Mr. Subramaniam talk about the government being extremely pro MedTech, healthcare more broadly, for good reasons, plenty of capital. Himanshu's talked about, Sandeep's talked about, just the private to public markets. What should be the bold aspiration of MedTech? You've seen this from the MNC side, you've seen it from the local side. What would be your take for the next 10 years?
Right. So I think the clarion call for setting the vision was actually during COVID. Before that, there were some bold visions crafted but never executed upon, but the industry has become extremely serious post that time frame. And I think the stated vision is that we want to bring down import dependence from 70, 80% to 30 odd percent. This is not a business where we'll be 100% domestic manufacturing driven. And when I say, bring down the component of imports, I also mean a large multinational investing in our market and manufacturing it in India. It's not necessarily domestic companies, right? Now, we are about a $15-16 billion business at this point in time. Our aspiration is that we should go up from 2% of global medtech to 10 to 12% of global medtech in the next couple of decades. And it's a journey because, setting up and building products, getting regulatory approvals, defining a go-to-market strategy always takes time. But the vision is quite bold that, A, self-sufficiency by local manufacturing, B, be a larger part of the global medtech platform. But I think what's also important to define a certain number to it, right? So currently, we export about $3.4 billion worth of medtech products. Our aim is that in the next 10 to 12 years, we want to take it to 10x to where it is at this point in time. And the ecosystem is fostering itself. Now, what we need to be very careful about is, what are those areas that we are going to be focusing upon? Because healthcare disease patterns are changing, healthcare delivery trends are emerging, and a country like us really need to focus a lot on the chronic side of the disease. We are between 2012 to 2030, we will lose almost $3.5 trillion of economic output just because of
NCDs.
Chronic disease. Yep. And if you look at, premature mortality because of chronic diseases, we are almost 600, 700 basis points higher than the rest of the world. So, working on chronic diseases, adopting digital solutions to manage healthcare, Dr. Subramaniam spoke about the need for reduced intervention by the healthcare professional. That becomes extremely important in our case. And preventive healthcare becomes extremely important, right? So the entire continuum from point of care to, self-monitoring or patient monitoring to patient individualization and management of the therapy, hence, is an important area that we need to really focus on as we craft our vision for the future. Again, Mr. Subramaniam spoke about the demographic, the socio-demographic equation of this particular country, the only way to go is up. We are highly underpenetrated, urbanization is happening, healthcare infrastructure is getting built at this point in time, reimbursement factors are kicking in. So the only way to go is up, and I think the government has played a significant role. When you look at it in isolation, you're not able to put it together, but I was attending the sessions in the morning, and if you look at it, 2014, we made 100% FDI possible in the MedTech arena. 2017, we came up with the Med Device rule. Again, 2020, we started the PLI, the MedTech parks. In 2023, again, we've come up with a new med device policy, the PRIP scheme, the Mitra scheme. So there's a lot of work that's happening. It's difficult for us to just sort of leapfrog from one to another in a year. But if you look at it, it's been last 10 years of work, which I think is bringing us to that inflection point where hopefully we should take off in the next few years.
Mr. Subramaniam, this must be music to your ears as you hear the absolute dual focus on improving health spans and NCDs in India for productivity, which is a must, and the 2 to 10% of GVCs that you've been championing, where India should be a massive exporter and playing on the global stage. Any comments from you, Mr. Subramanian?
Yeah. So let me just make 4 brief points based on the comments others made. So number one, and I think this is something which everybody in the healthcare sector, including MedTech, should remember. I think there has to be huge change in delivery models of healthcare in India. If you have to look at developed country standards and want similar types of delivery in India, I mean, we're going to be talking of 5 million hospitals and 30 million beds. There's going to be no physical space in India for that kind of stuff. Let me be very clear. So if you actually have the entire country demanding that level of service which is done in the traditional way, it's not going to happen. So there's going to be huge innovation in India in which delivery of healthcare is going to be done. Let's take it for granted. The existing models will not be adequate. There'll be new models. What does it mean? There'll be a huge amount of tech involved in the way healthcare is delivered. That's point number one. Point number two, the point which was saying, a lot of stuff is happening in the big cities, big metros, I think Upasana was mentioning. But what about the interior areas, tier 2, tier 3, go down further, tier 4. That's where the bulk of it is. People who remember long ago, 30 years ago, Hindustan Lever and, RIN, and then from nowhere you had Nirma coming up and taking over till, Lever had to go to Lalita ji. And then you had, when they'd forgotten that, then you have Ghadi detergent coming. I see waves of healthcare innovation coming in from the less observed parts of India. That is what, because that's where the bulk of the population is. Out of the 1.5 billion, 1 billion are living in underserved, underpenetrated areas. So new models will come. And normally we are looking forward. We're not seeing what's happening behind. And somebody will just go ahead and take over. So I think that's something to remember. The third is, I think India needs to align its, for just even for MedTech, but even overall, India should align itself with global standards. I think that's very, very important. It's been a big flaw in our pharma sector. We produce something for the world, we produce something else for India. It doesn't give us a good name. At least I personally have been a proponent that Indian domestic pharma standards should match, say, US FDA standard. I think MedTech should do that pretty fast before it grows big. Because then you created a vested interest for a different MedTech sector in India. The moment you align, you actually start becoming a world beater. Your automobile sector started becoming world beaters after you went into Euro 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think that's important. Then 2 other things. The government for a long time is going to be a major healthcare consumer of service. That's the model of Ayushman Bharat, PMJ, etc. Which means the government can also drive a lot of innovation and drive innovation in 2 ways. It's happened in the defense sector, IDEX, where the government actually procures to spec, not procures product. And then it throws up challenges by which actually products are made. You saw that in Operation Sindoor and all that. I think the potential for government to drive innovation through procurement, I think is going to be a major one, and it's going to be used. Niti is working in the health ministry to come up with an IDEX equivalent. The last is, and since this session is about investing in MedTech, the government has set up a huge fund. It's 1 lakh crore, ₹1 trillion on what they call R&D fund for the private sector. This is going from TRL 5 to TRL 9. That is from established idea to prototype. marketable product. I think there is scope for companies to tap into this. And I think MedTech is one of the priority areas for that particular fund. And if good ideas are there in partnership with the financial system, be it VC firms, PE firms, banking system, they should support Indian. When I say Indian, I don't mean Indian owned, I mean India based companies to actually go for these funds. Then that will actually generate the innovation ecosystem in India. I think these kind of monies are being committed for the first time anywhere in India. So I think that would be a major. When we think of R&D, we think of space and nuclear, not necessarily. I think MedTech is an equally large area, and given the ecosystem we have, that's one area they should tap into.
And I would just add to what you're saying, which is new models and innovation. I think also back to what Anish was mentioning, the preventive models with MedTech is going to be quite important from a affordability and access perspective as well. I'm going to shift gears. I'm watching the clock here and just talk a little bit more about innovation. It's been a theme throughout the morning and the afternoon. So maybe Shravan, starting with you, there is pockets of innovation. There is very exciting GCC work being done. We heard Kevin today talk about what Stryker's doing with AI, etc. Are we going to see breakthrough innovation in MedTech in India when you don't have capital constraints?
I think so, Karan. But just for some historic perspective, I think for a while ago, say 20, 30 years ago, the market tolerated 80% quality at 50% price just because, as Mr. Subramaniam said, it has traditionally been a very price-sensitive market. But now the customers are extremely discerning and demanding, as they should be. And again, as you said, taking from the pharma example, they have a right to have world-class products at affordable prices. So before I get to GCC, what I'm seeing in terms of the pockets of innovation, we're seeing a lot of constraint-driven innovation, Karan, and I guess that's a more nuanced way of saying jugad, right? Because we have our constraints, whether it's electricity or connectivity. That has always been something that was previously a concern, but those are being addressed now. Every center, every hospital has access to internet. So what we're seeing now is, internet-free AI. We're getting X-ray machines that have AI built into the RAM of X-ray machines so that you can solve for other constraints. Battery-powered molecular diagnostics, we've seen that since COVID. And I think there's a lot of engagement with clinicians. So the clinical context innovation is also happening in a fairly significant way, not just through government hospitals, but through the private sector as well. That allows the Indian MedTech ecosystem, and indeed the global MedTech ecosystem, to address some real-world clinical opportunities by collaborating with the hospital ecosystem. On GCCs, I think that has also reached a level of maturity. It's no longer just a cost center, but you're seeing true capability centers. If I could give an example from my previous company, Wipro GE, we had about 1,800 engineers that were that were designing more US patents than any other center outside the US. And this is for world-class products, CTs, MRIs, AI-enabled, 5G-enabled. So we clearly have the capability, but we need to hit that critical mass to see this really transforming into scale. But I think GCC is a stepping stone where there is a combination of KPO work and also development work. But at this point, it's more engineering than it is true R&D. I think we're just seeing that inflection point. IISc is collaborating, IITs are collaborating. We're on the right trajectory, Karan.
Got it. Thank you, Shravan. Himanshu, help us. Again, the theme that we've spoken about a lot today is about AI, and AI being disruptive and critical in MedTech. What is the real opportunity you're seeing from an investor lens? And are we going to see new business models for innovation like we're seeing in pharma with CDMOs evolve and become prominent here?
Yeah, I'd say, again, I may provide a slightly more contrarian view. I'd say AI is still quite nascent, especially in the types of portfolio companies that we are working with. I think AI is largely being used as a productivity enhancement tool, and I would say in measures of diagnostics today than actually uh, a surgical slash other initiatives as of now. Um, I do think there are some gaps in India that need to be bridged. I think the two gaps in my mind for true innovation would be, the first is just talent, right? I've seen we produce great engineers, but this intersection of biomedical plus engineering is hard to find. I don't think we have that ready talent. That bench needs to be set up. Second, I'd say we are yet to diversify our supplier base. I think a lot of products still need some degree of, call it, procurement from a Taiwan or a Korea. And I think we need to, like in automobiles, that happened over a period of time. I think this is something that needs to happen first. Uh, I do think there are pockets of opportunity certainly around the CDMO, CRO equivalent models. Um, the reason for that is I think there are specific areas in which we've started to scale. Uh, in areas particularly around consumables, I've seen we've started to scale, we've started to develop technologies, people are investing in R&D. Uh, pick, ophthalmology, cardiovascular, sutures. In all of these areas, we are investing in R&D. Most of the companies I see are investing 8 to 10% of their revenues as R&D. And I think you can build platforms around specifically these dimensions to create what I would call a value chain, individual pieces that can be outsourced, and then CRO, CMO can be done. I think total outsourcing is still some distance away.
I think Anish it'll be great to have you comment. You mentioned sutures, which is your bread and butter, but also help us understand, Healthium has been so successful from export-led. I think 60% plus is export-led and it's to developed markets. What's been the big learning for Healthium, for others looking at participating in GVCs, global value chains, but also then maybe the point Himanshu was mentioning on platforms?
So I think a lot of discussions happen in the morning around access, affordability, and the like. I think what India really brings to the fore is innovation for access, right? I mean, we are still mostly onto the incremental innovation piece. And it's a function of transition where exponential innovation will also happen over a period of time. And this, the one sector that is doing amazing well on the exponential part of innovation is the startup segment. There is an amazing amount of work that's happening out there. What the startup ecosystem needs to really figure out is how are they going to fund their growth and what is going to be their go-to-market strategy. For us, we were very clear that India is where we are going to constrain all our manufacturing because the ecosystem exists. What you really need is high-class engineers, metallurgy, plastic skills. You need pharmacology and regulatory skills, which because of pharma we have out here in the country. And if you leverage the ecosystem here and create economies of scale in this country with high quality products, you have an automatic right to win in the international markets. What you really need to do is, for that, make sure that your products are clinically relevant. So we invested significantly in terms of clinical studies on the products. We have more than 300 publications. And the second was to have an extremely strong regulatory output. So all our plants are USFDA approved. All our products are UMDR registered. Now that gives you an entry point in the developed markets because that is where you get the unit economics work significantly better. And you make that as sort of your entry point into the rest of the world. A lot of work has to happen around brand building, and you have to be very flexible, at least in the beginning, in terms of providing different solutions to your customers. So we do branded business, we also do OEM, we do private label, depending on our ability to access the market, because any kind of branding is of course also very, very expensive affair. And as you keep scaling up, how do you bring that element of differentiation in what you do? So we started with sutures and needles. We added sports medicine or arthroscopy. And the way we thought about is that we started with implants, we added instruments, then the next step was to create a shaver system, and finally we have created India's first 4K visualization system, right? So if you are able to capitalize on the entire continuum, when you work with distributors or customers across the globe, you are able to offer a one-stop shop solution as opposed to single, product categories that you can work towards. The other thing is that you have to really start creating products that are very specific to certain markets. So today, if you go for a shoulder implant, your product has been designed for a Caucasian bone and it is retrofitted to you. What we are doing is we are creating a shoulder for the Asian bone, and that will get retrofitted for different types of bone structures across the globe. Now this is a process. It requires a lot of investment. You have to look at the planning software. You have to look at the instruments. But companies that have been able to scale up slightly really need to start thinking global in terms of what is it that, and work very closely with academia around the world in terms of developing products that not only will find favor in our own country, but will also be accepted in the other parts of the world. So it's a step-up process, but very much doable, as a lot of companies in India have shown.
No, it's a wonderful formula you're outlining, which is innovation and scale to create a very compelling global value proposition. Sandeep, just help us out here. You've got a global view. The learnings for Indian MedTech from the Chinese players who have really gone global, what might some of those be for Mindray or United Imaging, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look globally at valuations for medtech companies, the highest correlation is top line growth to PE multiples to EBITDA. So as you're building your companies, thinking about products, categories that you can grow in, right? If you look at our success examples, Stryker, for example, they have their market cap has gone 5x over the last 10 years. And how have they done that? They've done that through growth, both in innovation internally and acquiring very important categories of medtech. So I think from this standpoint, as we look for companies here in India, as people are building their companies, thinking about really how are they sort of positioning for the future, and making these sort of outsized top line revenue growth numbers, because that's how you'll sort of make outsized returns at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we have about 5 minutes, so I'll just maybe try and get your thoughts as we try and wrap up here. And Mr. Subramaniam will give you the last word. Maybe Shravan, starting with you, what's the role global MNCs, you've got some of the leading MNCs here, can play in helping us, close some of the ecosystem gaps that's also been talked about? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think, this morning we had a terrific opening session by Ashwani and CK, where they laid out, what is required or how the MNCs could support. I think tech transfer is certainly one point to start with, but as we mature, I think co-creation of the next generation of platforms will be a significant opportunity. And Himanshu also mentioned that we have engineers, we have trained folks, but when it comes to systems engineering, UI, UX, I think we still lack that finesse there. We're able to solve mechanical problems, electrical problems, but when it comes to a completely engineered solution, that's where we could utilize the support of our MNC friends. Correct.
Thank you. Anish, your thoughts on potential partnerships, beneficial win-win partnerships between MNCs and Indian leaders? What might that look like?
Yeah, I think we should absolutely roll out the red carpet for the multinational companies, because we really need some large-scale anchor manufacturers out here in India. Right? I mean, how do you foster the growth of an ecosystem? You heard in the morning that some of the products take almost 3,000 to 5,000 components to make. And if I were to start building an ecosystem of 3,000 to 5,000 components, it'll take me 25 years to get there, right? If multinationals start investing in the country, it automatically will give birth to the supplier ecosystem because that is our largest constraint at this point in time. Today, if I were to manufacture a endosurgical stapler, I need 200 components, and none of those components are available out here in India. So I think it is extremely important. The second thing is that, we need to co-develop and co-create products with the multinationals, right? Not all companies can manufacture everything in-house. They need partners, and that's where I think India is a great ground of and has a great supply of entrepreneurs who are more than happy to partner with them in terms of co-creating and co-developing the product. What we have to ensure is that, as Mr. Subramanian also spoke about, is that quality cannot be compromised. We really, currently only less than 10% of our companies are USFDA or UMDR approved. We really need to up the ante and scale it up. That will make us more attractive for the multinationals to come and partner with us also, right? But I think, and the last thing I would say is that, co-market the products in the emerging market space in India. The complexity that some of us have been able to sort of ride over is something which we can make available to them.
And Anish, I think the learning from what has happened in a very short span in electronics and how a couple of major anchor companies, global companies have changed the ecosystem. Mr. Subramanian is quite aware of, the PLIs to the component focus to the DLIs. I think can be a massive game changer for the industry. Himanshu and Sandeep, maybe just get your views on what new platforms, what are the big bet investments and deals you would you think we will see in the next couple of years?
I'd say the emphasis from a deal standpoint is on creating scale players. I think once you get critical scale, then it's almost like a flywheel where you can attract talent, you can invest in R&D, you have the wherewithal to focus on quality, regulatory. And from our standpoint, one of the things we want to foster is to allow domestic champions to become big, not just by providing capital, but also providing access through a global sort of platform like ours. Um, it enables technology, access to technology, but it also enables M&A, not just in India, but outside India. And I'd say one of the themes to chase is what are the subsegments like an IVD, like ophthalmology, where you can actually take a domestic champion through a combination of technology additions, M&A, make it into a regional champion and eventually a global champion.
Sandeep, your thoughts? Would you agree?
No, I agree with Himanshu. I think there are many exciting MedTech companies here in India, many of whom are sitting in the room. So pay attention.
What would be your top three?
Top three, I can't give you investment advice right now, but I'd go to the last row here, the entrepreneur sitting in the back, taking copious notes, developing their business plan. That's the next Intuitive Surgical, sitting in the last row.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Upasana, will give you the last word. What's the biggest game changer for MedTech as you hear this panel and as a customer?
So I just want to request all of you that even I am talking about MNCs also, I'm not talking about who are working or who are a startup in India or working in India or they are Indian companies. I can tell you one example when we are very old customer of Paramount Beds. And in my new hospital, because it's a very big hospital, so we have asked many companies, Arju Huntley, Stryker and Paramount. But we have given one suggestion to Paramount, which they have adopted and others have not. That we wanted a fully, their railing should be fully equipped. There should not be any gap because small children can, fall down. So after that, I realized that they adopted and when we started using that bed and we are feeling really good. So there are many customer feedback, like if somebody is making suture, if somebody is making some other thing, kindly take your customer feedback. Maybe he is giving you a tip which can be very beneficial for your future. And that is how you can, make more new customers and you can tell that you are the best in the industry. And same time, this is high time for India, because government is pushing you towards all the benefits. So from my side, right now India is already doing good, but all those who are sitting in this room can do more, and they can encourage more, because you are already working, but you can encourage more. Rather, after this session, I am planning to meet both of them and planning to
Good
come
idea.
into MedTech. Thank you.
Excellent. And everyone should listen to you, Pasna. Super exciting decade ahead. We've heard a lot of interesting thoughts from where the government's pushing the sector, global, domestic champions with scale and innovation. I agree with you, Himanshu. There is work to be done on AI, but that's where we should think about leading and aspiring for true leadership. There's plenty of capital, as Sandeep has mentioned, you mentioned, and lots of M&A. So exciting times ahead. With that, I'm just going to hand off to Mr. Subramaniam for your last thoughts, and then probably close the session.
I think a lot has been said. There are exciting times. India is the place to be as a consumer, as a manufacturer, as an exporter. But there's a lot to be done. So let's leave one parting thought, actually a parting piece of work for anybody or collectively, either to individual companies or to an association or whatever. I think the government is an overdrive on reforms. There's a high-level committee on reforms which is actually anchored in NITI. Okay, that's where I come from, actually, rushing. So if you have any thoughts or ideas which can actually improve the medtech sector, please send it to NITI. And you take my name and just mail it NITI, it will reach. And it's my job to see that it gets pushed to the system. I can recite 10 reforms your sector needs. It may not strike you, but we need patent law reform. If you actually have to get your products into the market, Indian products get patented outside because our patent system has got its own challenges. You can think of 20 other things that need to be done. Send us suggestion, and rest assured, within 6 months, you'll see action, including reforms of laws. Thank you very much.